additional results or detailed methods or images. They are important for reproducibility, but their quality of fairness is not consistent. And they are not indexed in PMC, so you cannot search in them. And it's a burden for integration. Here's a good example. The guy has published accession numbers in a CSV file, so easily openable by a machine. This is a bad example. 18 mega Excel file, I mean 30,000 files in an Excel file. Excel file, for me, is a good format for accounting. Maybe it's going better for manipulating data, okay, but it's not a good format for publishing data. Definitely not. And an ugly example. 2 PDF, 9 Word file. I mean, accession numbers pasted in a Word file, and 12 Excel file. Actually, what we showed is that 18% of these accession numbers of global core biodata accession numbers were published in Excel files. So we extracted the text from these supplementary data files and made them available in biodiversity PMC. So you can spot your accession number in Excel files like that, or in a Word file. So for this query, for example, if you search since January 24, you have 36 PMC full text written by PMC, but you also can find 31 additional PMC articles where the accession numbers is mentioned only in supplementary data files and not in the manuscript. So by extracting the text from the files, we made the data findable, but preserving the structure for interoperability and reusability is a bigger challenge. We addressed this challenge in Elixir, data platform, where we try to see the point of view of different key actors when they share data. So we assess the fairness. There is a summary of this report in the Google Doc. We find something about findability. So good metadata standards, but metadata completion is a weakness. For accessibility, the use of this format, Excel, Word, is a weakness, definitely. And we made some recommendations like please publish with PID in an open, trusted, appropriate repository with good metadata. Do not publish datasets as supplementary data files, so maybe guide authors toward high-quality, appropriate repositories. Encourage the release of data before review. And for funders, enforce that. Okay, to finish, I would like to share, we mentioned that we submitted an article this summer, we published an article this summer about that, and I wanted to share the reviews of this article because we show that a lot of accession numbers were in Excel, and we criticized Excel, and the reviewers, all reviewers did not agree, said, what's the real problem with Excel? Said, FAIR should be for human readability and accessibility, so Word and Excel are good formats, and we had to tone down the critics of Excel. So beyond being a challenge of changing data practices, it could be a challenge of changing culture about publishing data. Thank you very much, and I think it's Matt. please, Matt.
Hi, I am Matt Jeffries. I work as a data scientist on a resource called Europe PubMed Central at the European Bioinformatics Institute in Cambridge in the UK. And I'm going to be talking about how we have been trying to enhance the findability of supplementary material within our resource. So Europe PMC is a life science literature database. The predominant component of our material is from PubMed and PubMed Central, which are resources produced by the NLM, the National Library of Medicine in the US. We also include material from 34 different preprint servers. These are all life science preprint servers, along with author-accepted manuscripts from our funding organisations such as the Wellcome Trust, the European Research Council, Cancer Research UK, and many others. So in addition to making the literature itself available through our website and through our APIs, through a search engine, we also enhance the literature, and part of that is that we do text mining on our text material. We have around 2 billion text mine annotations. Some of these text mine annotations are produced by us, and some of them are produced by third parties, including including Patrick's group at the SIB. The text mine annotations come from the abstracts and the full text, and they cover the journal articles and the preprints, and as well as being available through the web interface, they're also available through an API. Something that we're working on is trying to apply this to the supplementary material. So we have a project that we worked on with our colleagues in the biostudies team at the European Bioinformatics Institute, whereby they take the supplementary material from publications in our database. They produce essentially an entry for it within their database, which acts as a way of making it more visible to people who might want to use it. And then they extract the text from that material, if possible. They apply this process to text-based documents such as Word documents. They also apply it to PDFs, so they extract the text from PDFs, and then they send it back to us, and we then mine that for the entities that we look for in the biomedical literature. So that includes chemicals, diseases, experimental methods, proteins and genes, and then these become, if you can see on here, on the right side of this panel here. Actually, is that big? Yeah, sorry. Next slide. My mistake. On the next slide. That then appears on the web interface as being within the supplementary material, so that makes it findable through the search engine and also visible. So if you're reading the article, you can see if a particular gene that you're interested in has been mentioned in supplementary material without having to go in and open it first. So you kind of know in advance what's in there rather than having to guess. So yeah, that's a very brief introduction to our work in this area. Many people went on. Many people's work went towards this within the Europe PMC team, which is headed by Melissa Harrison, and within the biostudies team, which is headed by Eugis Sarkans. So yeah, that's it for my bit. And who am I handing over to now? Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next speaker.
Yeah, so keep the question for the interactive session. So let me check who's next. So it's Scott, and I think Scott has recorded this presentation.
I'm here, but you should have a video.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm really sorry I can't be there in person. I should be online, and I will be presenting an extended version of this talk, session 5 this afternoon in the Plaza Terrace.
Yeah, I need to just move it to the main screen.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there is a bit of manual work. Not everything is semantically interpretable. And then, yeah, I will do that. Let's see. Okay. Should be okay now.
Hi, so I'm really sorry I can't be there in person. I should be online, and I will be presenting an extended version of this talk, session 5 this afternoon in the Plaza Terrace room from 4 o'clock, if you want to hear more. I'm talking about a particular case study from 15 years of experience at Gig Science Press. I just finished last month, but this work basically relates to what I've been doing for the last decade and a half. And Giga Science Press has been focused on publishing data and various different research objects. We have had a associated repository and curators assisting with all of this process. So it's a quite broad case study because it involves repositories and journals. So from the journal perspective, GigaScience launched in 2012, publishing initially data and software and moving to other research objects. We were the first journal to publish data papers in the biological and biomedical sciences, and we did this with a data team on hand to kind of do data publishing as a service. We also growingly published more and more software over the years, following the same approach, right? Citing the software in the references and taking snapshots of the code as well, so it can't be deleted from GitHub, for example. And over time, more and more computational workflows as well. We had different ways of handling this. In the end, we focused on using Workflow Hub, which handily archives everything, gets it citable DOIs, and even allows export of RO crate objects. But over more recent years, we've seen a growing amount of machine learning research. Not just GigaScience, everybody, you just look at the kind of rise of this type of research. But GigaScience as well has seen more and more of our papers using machine learning and blurring the lines between, data and software, because it includes, both of these together. And so there's been big challenges with this because, with the focus on reproducibility, these things are kind of black boxes, and quite difficult to kind of tease apart the different key components. And so we looked around at how we could tackle these more scientifically, and looking at machine learning standards, we decided to try out DOME, which came from the Elixir Machine Learning Group. DOME standing for Data Optimization, Model, and Evaluation, being non kind of field specific, being very general, and including, importantly, some useful tools, a data stewardship wizard and a registry, which made its use a lot easier. So we used the general guidelines in the editorial assessment process, looking at submissions to see if they follow DOME or at least are DOMEable. If it seems DOMEable, then we would follow a workflow where we would send the authors the data stewardship wizard, get them to fill all of these DOME details into it, send it to peer review, let the peer reviewers use these annotations as well. And if it passes peer review, the annotations get moved into and curated into the DOME registry. This gets a persistent identifier, which is cited in the paper, and future readers can basically find them. And so to look at the end product, in the data availability section, we would cite the DOME registry, PID, people can kind of find it there, and also from the GigDB database entry. This then links to the DOME registry entry. It gives it a nice score on its dominess. And you can find all the individual components, the training data, and the details on the optimization, the models, and like from there. These are the particular parts that readers want to look at. And so we've had about 50 of these in the DOME registry now. There's a preprint available if you want to see more details on how this has worked. And as I say, I'm presenting more on this afternoon. So maybe see some of you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Scott is online at the session. So if you have a question for him, so use the same channel and he will be able to answer. The next speaker is Mark. Yep. Thank you, Mark. I'm just looking for your presentation. It's here. We're going to talk about Gray. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Hannell. I'm the founder of Figshare, which is a generalist repository, but I am here today to represent the Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative funded by the NIH. Just to hijack it and say my own personal thoughts on this are, I think that we need to be framing this conversation as how can we make data fair for machines, because a lot of the reuse that we're talking about and the reproducibility, it might be humans driving the machines, but it's making it nice for machines. And so we're talking about the realm of generalist repositories. Figshare started as a generalist repository because I was trying to publish videos in supplemental materials in a paper, and they said the files were too big back in 2010. If Zenodo had existed then, I would have put the files in Zenodo. It didn't exist. So here we are, and we have several generalist repositories that I'll be talking about today. I think we all know where generalist repositories fit. If there's a subject-specific repository, you should use that. If you have nowhere else to make your data available, make it available in a generalist repository. I think that when we talk about fair and generalist repositories, all of the repositories that the NIH funds through the Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative can support fair data technologically, but there's a human in the loop, and that's where not all data in these repositories are fair, because sometimes largely the metadata isn't good enough when provided by the humans. So the goals of the Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative is the NIH, when their funder mandate came out, they said, if we fund you, you've got to make your data available, and you should make it available in some of these repositories. But then they thought about, well, we need this interoperability between the repositories. We need to all be working together. We've all been hanging out at a conference like this for years, but we've never really got together and talked about standardizing a lot of the things we do. So just pointing at a couple of the goals, enabling the improved discoverability of NIH-funded data across generalist repositories. They want to know, tell us about all of the data that we funded, and encourage NIH-funded researchers to be both contributors and consumers to increase the reuse of data. We've paid for it. We want it to be used again and again, standing on the shoulders of giant stuff. This is the way we do it. I won't pause on it. There's lots of different ways we do it. There's outreach. I co-chaired with John Chodacki the most recent work we did on metadata improvements and metadata consistency. So adopting consistent metadata models is one of the areas we're focused. We work in a very interesting model called co-opetition, where we have different models, different sustainability models, and so you can compete on some features and whiz-bang stuff, but the reality is we're trying to standardize common functionality. Somebody came to our booth yesterday and asked, what's the difference between Figshare and Zenodo? And the answer is not very much, and we're trying to make them even more similar. So it's a moving goals. So in terms of what we've achieved, so we have gray metadata recommendations on metadata for generalist repositories. We're developing and implementing open common metrics. So make data count from datasite has a lot of data linking papers to accession numbers and DOIs from datasites. At the Costa Rica RDA last year, I presented on tracking how the percentage of papers that link to a data set. So we can see we're moving in the right direction globally, but how much of that data is actually useful for the machines? We document use cases, we enhance community engagement and build capacity, webinars, workshops, training. It'd be very easy to say people are just going to, society to change, people are just going to pick it up. Reality is you just got to keep hitting researchers over the head with this. And we foster data sharing and reuse culture through collaboration. So we have a grey code of conduct. In terms of metadata specifically, as I mentioned before, grey, there was no consistent metadata for the community that we were adhering to. We agreed to use datasite as the output for where we aggregate this metadata. And we're at a point now, you have to remember as well, it's NIH funded, so the NIH can now say, across all of these repositories, show me all of the data sets that we funded. But it also works for other funders too, which is the joy of standards. And we've been working with the metadata game changers team to understand where we all are. You can't say how bad, as I say, poor quality metadata has been the bane of my existence. I think I'm an optimist. I think we can improve all of this. I think we will solve all of this, even for all of the data that's been made available in the past. But you don't know how well you're doing unless you can track consistently across all the repositories where the gaps are. And so we've been pulling together dashboards so we can say, we're doing well at this, you're not doing well at that, and we're moving forward. All of the documentation is available online. I'll leave those links up for a second as we transition, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say that we are very much on time. So please, Slava.
Yeah, hello everyone. So my name is Slava Tikhonov. I'm head of AI at CodeData. Recently joined. So I'm going to tell you a bit about cross-NML. I'm also one of co-authors with Standard. And the story is quite interesting because at some point, a couple of years ago, Harvard was approached by Google and they started discussion about creation of a specific standard for machine learning. And actually, Harvard asked me to represent them in this group, and I did for a couple of years. So as a result, we published a specification 1 year ago, and one and a half years ago, and now it's basically emerging. And it's also getting a momentum because people started to use that. So I'm going to tell you what it is and why it's useful also for you. So if you'll take a look on this picture, you will see different levels. So for example, there is a metadata level, which is available in every repository. And there is also resources and structure. So structure is very important because that's something useful for AI. And but there is also semantics. And if you'll think about the whole process, how artificial intelligence works at the moment with LLMs, it's not reliable. And what we're doing, we are trying to also to move in the direction of responsible AI and make it also explainable. So not only if you'll get some answers, you will guess is it right or wrong, but you will get also references to the original materials where AI is able to find it. So we're also trying to make this standard universal for any kind of machine learning frameworks. So from this diagram, you can see that Keras, for example, PyTorch, TensorFlow, all of those frameworks already supported. You can just feed cross-NN in, and you can train your machine learning models on that. So why it's important and where actually we are also doing the intersection with DDI and CDIF. As you see, CDIF is very useful for responsible AI because there are a lot of fields which are intersecting, and DDI has a quite long history. It's probably like 25 years old and very well developed terminology and methodology. So you can feel inside of Croissant, you can feel directly all missing fields which are not included in original metadata, but already documented as DDI files. Probably some XML files stored somewhere separately, not even in repository. And you can just basically use them to fill this information, and AI will understand and will give you an idea how it was created and how it was documented, and what actually you're looking for will become very clear even for artificial intelligence. So this is example, it's basically produced by AI as well. So this CDIF-driven DDI variable cascade, how we called it, it has all relationships between variables, and as soon as all variables are interconnected, it also understands information about units of measurements, all properties and attributes, and it can answer any kind of questions related to your data. In this example, after we got this variable cascade, we asked AI to do translation. So it does translation automatically, and this is a French model called Mistral is doing that. So basically, if you have some metadata record, you can already have translation in the context, because context is being brought by DDI. So it has description and understand context, and it's able also to recognize in the vector space which kind of translations can be suitable for this specific concept, and it can enrich this information. And as soon as there is enrichment, you can also ask AI models to provide information about all relationships. And in this example, it's COS, but you can actually use Gobeill on any kind of ontology, and it will do its job. However, it should be also evaluated by human, but this record is already quite useful, and you can use it for any kind of metadata enrichment. I put a little bit more slides, but I need to tell you also a difference between CDIF and Croissant ML, because it's not the same thing. Basically, CDIF is kind of extension of Croissant. You can see Croissant as a digital library, and this is a place where you're just going to the library and asking for some books about specific topics, and librarian is bringing you books. And after, because you don't know terminology, so you're basically using like generic words to find this information, and after, the librarian doesn't know what you're looking for. And after you're switching to CDIF, because it has all this expert knowledge. And in expert knowledge, there are all variables described by researchers. Probably researchers working on the same topic can think about different things described by their experiments. We call it CDIF profiles. And basically, you can look up for a CDIF profile created by specific research group. They have all specific context and variable description. And you can feed this information into AI. And AI will understand that you're looking for specific things and will bring you all this information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lava. So I think we're going to move to the...
I forgot. So if you know this song, it will show it's from 1969. It's called In the Year of 2525. So you can see the picture.
Okay, it's a time machine. So I think I will now move to the Google Doc, actually. And it will be the Q&A session. Oh, sorry. Oh, but it's not, yeah, okay, I see why I overlooked him. So, where is the presentation?
We have to ask the AV guy to switch to tools.
It's there?
Switch to technology.
Ah. Okay, so but then can we launch Zoom? Oh, wonderful.
That's what it was.
Oh, that's still. There should be another speaker, Thomas Lemberger.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah. Hi, Thomas.
Hey. Okay, let me share my screen. Good morning, everybody. I hope it works. If you cannot see the slides or if you cannot hear me, let me know. So today I'm going to give you a little overview of what we try to do at EMBO with regard to a specific type of supplementary files, the files that contain the data behind the paper. And we have a project since a couple of years called Source Data, where we try to really integrate the practice of open science in publishing. And we do that with our journals. We publish 5 different journals. We have also a preprint platform, a preprint review platform, Review Commons. And with all these journals, we try to increase transparency and also to try to bridge the gap between these two main streams of disseminating scientific results and scientific knowledge. On one hand, on the right, we publish preprint, we do the peer review on this preprint and publish articles in journals. And on the left, we have this sort of essentially completely dissociated process where data are deposited in data archives and after curation can be disseminated in proper structured repositories. And what we try to do is to try to think and also do that in practice, how to bridge these two columns, the publishing, the journal publishing column, if you want, and the data publishing column, and to try really creating the bridge, of course, linking the two types of contents, papers with the data behind the papers.
Sorry,
also try to
Thomas,
think.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
So
yes.
I think maybe your slides might be in the wrong mode. So we see your slides, but it's not in full screen. So maybe if you're progressing your slides, we're not seeing it.
I see. That is annoying. Thanks for alerting me before I'm in the end. Let me see. Do you see that?
Yeah, please, if you could go back a little bit, I think we can give you some more time.
So this was the first slide, source data, hello. The 4 journals, very important. Do you see that? Yeah. I hope so. All right. 2 columns here on the right, publishing manuscripts. On the left, disseminating data. And with the publishing, we call the quality check peer review. And on the left, we call the quality check curation. And we try to create bridges between that, between preprint, between journals and data repositories, but also trying to create bridges between the peer review process and the curation process, and eventually use AI to help us doing that at scale. I hope it makes sense in this brief way. So since a couple of years, we try to do efforts to provide the data behind the papers in a slightly better form and not just as supplementary information on our websites. And the idea there was very, very simple, was to try to curate the figures that we have and associate them with the research data and during the publication process. And essentially what we were doing was to identify the bioentities involved in an experiment shown in a figure, and also capture their role in the experimental design, whether they are the object of a measurement or whether they are the target of a causal intervention. With that, we linked all the bioentities to 7 different resources, of course, including UniProt, KB, and so on, that allowed us to make a large knowledge graph. And we really have embedded that in the publication process. So we request the data behind every figure from the authors. This data can be small scale, the typical Excel files, but can also be deposited in structured repositories. This is typical for omics. We have a data curation step that was a human curation step until now. And then we deposit all this information, the data, but also the biological metadata in biostudies, such that for every paper that we publish, we have this one-to-one relationship between the paper and one entry in biostudies that serves essentially as a one-stop shop for the data associated with the paper, receives a unique accession number that we automatically include in the data availability section of every paper. So we have this sort of bidirectional relationship between the paper and the biostudies avatar, if you want, data avatar. Now, we have done that during a couple of years, and we're releasing now the data set that comes from this curation step. It's a nice data set, it's fairly large, and it is multimodal in nature because we do all this curation at the level of individual panel of the figure. So it's not the entire figure, but the individual panels that represent individual experiments. So we have trained PubMed BERT on the entities and also segmentation YOLO models to do the segmentation of the images. Now, when we ask the authors to provide the data, the reactions is a little bit mixed. Some people like it. They say, that's great. We can archive the data behind our paper and we can find it later. And if we're challenged for data integrity issues, we can prove, that we had the data behind the paper. So that's really great. Now, other authors, they find it really time consuming. They don't really see the value for themselves. And making the data reusable, fair, is actually extremely difficult and maybe in many cases not so super useful, for example, in the case of Western blots. And so there is a question, how to make that maybe more comfortable in the future. And there is this sort of tendency to think, open science is really hard. Oh my God, now at 4 o'clock in the morning, I still have to curate my data and prepare my manuscript. And maybe in the future, we can make that a little bit fun. Maybe we can even make something completely crazy, that is really very nice. I don't know. But in any case, what we are doing now is we are replacing the manual curation step with a more automated process, and we are sort of rewriting the platform. We are keeping the entire workflow of requesting the data behind the papers and depositing these data in biostudies intact. But we are rewriting the platform as an AI-first platform to have automatic passing of the manuscript or the figures and the panels, and then inject a series of what we call multimodal quality check with AI, trying to leverage the multimodal capabilities of modern model that understand both the image of the figure, the text of the figure caption, and eventually can understand to some extent the data associated with the figure. So we go step by step, and there is a step in the publication process we have at the journal, which is to check different policies in terms of data presentation in the figure, whether error bars are displayed, whether symbols are defined, whether statistical tests are mentioned, whether the nature and the number of replicates is mentioned in the figure caption. It's very tedious to do by humans, and so we're trying to replace that with multimodal quality checks. And the principle there is to develop prompts, of course, to execute these checks. It can be difficult to be very, very explicit and rigorous defining these prompts, and then benchmark the quality of this AI QC with a test set and benchmark set. And this opens the opportunity to measure really the efficiency and the quality of this AI-based QC and try to improve either the models, which is not a big issue nowadays, but more to develop better prompt. Not that much because AI does not understand the figures. The AI models now understand multi-panel figures very well, but rather to write policies that are very explicit, and this can be difficult. So we're developing an open library of AI checks, and we want to release this as an open resource, really, where every check is benchmarked. And we think this will facilitate the standardization of editorial checks of these typical curation steps that we do in publishing. We'll increase the transparency of these checks also because we write out really the policy, and we can provide a test set to show what is the expected result of applying this policy. We hope to benefit from support from the community, and we're engaging, for example, with the microscopy community for image check. And eventually, we want really authors to do this work themselves, and we're building a platform that we can integrate again, eventually at submission, at the moment at revision stage in the manuscript. And in this is sort of this way of merging, if you want, peer review curation with AI. Eventually, we want also to expose this information to the reviewers to make the peer review of data associated with papers more comfortable and more useful. And just to finish, I think we are at this change, and I would be interested to hear your thoughts, where we are coming from a world where we're really obsessed having structured data, text mining, identifying entities, linking them into knowledge bases and controlled vocabulary. Now, natural language is becoming machine readable, and this distinction between what is useful for machines and machine readable versus human readable becomes a little bit more blurred. This is not to say that we don't need structured information. Of course, we do. For publishers, I think this is an opportunity to increase transparency with having very explicit policies that are also human readable and machine actionable. Using AI slaves to free up time for our editorial teams so that they can provide better service to authors. I think we are on the verge of having AI being able to check for sound science at scale. And eventually, I think AI is going to be extremely useful to make all this knowledge computable itself. So I just wanted to finish with these thoughts, and thanks a lot for having me today.
For the panel, but it also can be very open. So I think I will now display the Google Doc, if I manage. Because it's in the other window, but I will get it. Yeah, it's here. This is an exercise. Okay, not too bad. So I think now I will invite Wolmar. Maybe for the Q&A. Yeah. So these are questions that were either collected from the Q&A. I think please the panelists can come back, or at least Julien, Matt, Scott, and then Mark again. Question. Let me go back. Slava and Thomas. Okay, please, guys, you can sit on the chairs. And you want to? Yeah. Okay, I can go on. So the first question is for you, Julien. Did you get the microphone? Yeah, okay, it's here.
Yep.
I can read the question if you want. So would it make sense to continue with Excel and integrate biocuration in the journal publishing workflow? For instance, files are improved before publication.
Yeah, that's the questions I asked for other people in the QA. I think that Excel is a de facto standard, because I read some numbers, but maybe 80% of people work with Excel. So people are used to manipulate the data with Excel, and where they are asked to submit data, they just submit Excel files. So that was my question, should we teach the AI checker to reject Excel files. I don't know if it is a feasible recommendation.
Any contribution from the other panelists? So, are there any other panel member that would like to pick up that one about the Excel, or should we move to the next one? Okay. Yeah, you can. Yeah, please give the microphone. Slava?
So I think we need to keep Excel and original data standards that we're using right now, but also teach AI how to do interpretation. So what we're doing with CDIF, we're trying to create semantic mappings, and we're trying to also define semantics. And as soon as you're describing this and making it clear with AI, like I said, you're moving descriptive part into cross-an metadata, but in the same time, all data points could be expressed as graph, knowledge graph. So you are basically using these to tell AI the whole information about what is about and how to find it. And as soon as it's clear, it can make Sparkle queries, can make SQL queries. We don't care what kind of interface you can use. And you can do interpretation because AI can do that automatically. I can also showcase this if you would like to, if you'll have.
Oh, no, we have a SparkQL endpoint at SIB, which is powered with a chatbot and that supports you in writing your SparkQL. But the evaluation we made is that less than 50% of the SparkQL queries that it generates are actually answerable. So maybe it will come. So please, let's move to the next one. Would it be better, so that's a question for Matthew, would it be better if the methods and chemicals were submitted by authors from a controlled vocabulary?
I think it would be better, but I don't think that they will do this. I mean, this is basically just the idea here is kind of having authors curate their own papers, which, I mean, it is something that happens in some fields. If you have a paper, for example, associated with a protein structure, then the authors will upload that to PDB. They will essentially curate some aspects of that data. I'm not sure it's realistic to expect authors to kind of curate every kind of biomedical entity that they discuss in their paper. That would be an awful lot of work for them. It also doesn't cover kind of historical papers. You know, if you're looking back at the literature into the past, ideally we should be able to mine some data from the, you know, the 50 million odd papers in PubMed that have already been published. So we can't really expect authors from 10 or 20 years ago to go back and curate their papers. So yeah.
Just to add to that, I think this is the idea that, you know, if you work in the pharmaceutical industry, you are paid to do a job, and if the company tells you you need to record your data in a certain way, you need to mark up your papers for internal submission in a certain way, you do it because otherwise you don't lose your job. And you don't have that in general academia. And it's the case of if you show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. So we can either try and incentivize that going forward, but my position on this is we can't rely on societal change and humans globally to act in a way we want, because there's no evidence to suggest that it's happened in the past, so why would it start happening now? I saw you shaking your head. Do you disagree?
Yeah, please.
I'm going roaming.
So I'm Ian Bruno from the CCDC. So the small molecule crystallography experience, which is another one where a community has adapted to do good things with their data. I don't know whether to agree with you or just sort of like be totally depressed by the defeatism. So I think my question to the panel is, are there not changes we can make that might start making incremental changes to people doing better by the data, objects and assets and things associated with that data that please make this better so we're not still having these conversations in 10 years' time?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm super optimistic about this whole space, and I'm super optimistic that we will move to a place where it is better, and there's a million different ways in a million different fields in which we can nudge people into better practices. I just think sweeping statements of, oh, we just get the researchers to do it, is like, you got to double click and unload into that.
I think that was the thought that was going through my mind as well when you were talking, is that part of the solution here is to think about which direction, upstream or downstream, the early research stages and how things are captured, and then making it easier for them to be reported, deposited, uploaded to, even if we are going to stick within the current sort of journal paradigms that we've got, hopefully upload them in a more structured way, which make them more amenable. But yeah, thinking about the systems pre-publication and how data is captured, so that you're not worrying about this when it comes to putting the paper together. You've actually done that job before you've gotten there.
Yeah, I think oh, you want to pick up that one? Please. Tony, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. It's Tony Burdett, Biofair in the UK. I put in the Google Doc actually further down, but exactly on this theme and it's a good question for the whole panel really, because I think you all talked about the challenges of getting good, fair data, but you talked about the challenge of asking people to publish that fair data, and my hypothesis here, or the controversial statement for the panel to discuss is that too late in the process, and how do we change that culture so that rather than thinking about how to get people to publish good data sets at the point at which they write their manuscript, at which point the incentives have all evaporated, how do you change culture to make sure people are caring more about this stuff through the whole research data management process?
Yeah, so the question is like, would it be better if the work was done before?
I would say it would be better if it was done before, but how do you make that happen?
Is it recorded, by the way? Okay, so I'm talking to Google on a regular basis, and they have exactly the same problem. So they're not there yet. However, we have a real opportunity that AI assistants will become common on every computer. So it will be your tool that you will use on a daily basis, and the only challenge to make it to add some interoperability and also basically to convince all researchers to use that. And this is why I'm pretty optimistic, and I also see that progress that we are making. Honestly, it looks like, in my imagination, like Liquid Terminator, when we started to produce this variables cascade, and based on just data points plus variables descriptions, AI models able to reconstruct the whole documentation process, which is kind of amazing, and even predicting what kind of tools and instruments researchers used to produce these data sets. So I think it has potential.
Yeah, I just want to touch a little bit more on the kind of the mood of the room, and it's, we've all got a lot of work to do, and we're not all not going to be out of work in our lifetimes, but it's like a very exciting time because, 10 years ago we'd be having this conversation and be saying, well, if you can talk to the researchers and train them, is very manual, labor intensive, and you can encourage them to do better things. That was kind of the only thing we had going, and maybe things like AI had come along in the future. And now what you said about AI assistance for everything, I think that is the way to do it. We also have the incentive models changing with things like the NIH-funded S-Index, and we have DeepMind winning the Nobel Prize for showing that you can build on top of, the protein data bank and things like this. So I think it's doable, and we'll get there. We just need to keep going in our own different ways to get there.
Yeah, so I wanted to elaborate. I was specifically saying about local AI assistants, that data should be not shared with someone like Google, but Google should help us to produce data.
Okay. Okay, I think we will move to a question for Scott, which is, we'll try to have a discussion with the Zoom. So the question is, curators assisting authors for high quality /DOM metadata during the review, who should pay /monitor? That's a very interesting question. So I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Great. There's a huge version of my head behind you. Okay. So this particular workflow that we used, so in theory, the authors, that the submitters should be the people in charge of their own data, right? So the data stewardship wizard is designed for the study creator to use. So in theory, so we would send the wizard to the authors, and they would fill all of this in. Then we would share that with the peer reviewers, so that would then work into the peer review process. And in theory, it makes peer review easier because all of these things would be hidden, and it's presenting it in a much more easy to comprehend way for the peer reviewers. Curators at the beginning of the process have to do some checking and oversee this and work with the authors. And at the very end, then if it passes, the DOME registry involves a curation step to release. So that's the part that in theory you need to pay people, right? And so we paid our own curators, and also the Elixir machine learning group were the kind of curators at the final stage. So hopefully Elixir will continue to pay them to do that stage. But it did have an additional cost in we were having to pay a human to kind of oversee this process a bit. So, and we were kind of working that into the article processing costs and the like. But and hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think for the Elixir, you're right. So the experiment was supported by Elixir, but I bet that is not a long-term model for Elixir to go on with this. So it was more like a one-shot experiment for the proof of concept. That's my. I mean, we should ask Silvio Tossato, which coordinated it, but my understanding from the data platform that it was one shot.
Yeah. And so 18% of the content now in the registry is from GigaScience papers, for example. But then they're curating, they seeded it completely themselves, and they're hoping that other journals will contribute that. But yeah, how we figure out the long-term sustainability models for this process, it's a trial, it's a case study. We're trying to show the utility of this. We want to see if people actually use the data, use the models, they're using the registry, right? And then that helps justify this. But that's kind of where we're at in this experiment.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for your answer. So one of the Slava wants to add something.
Yeah, so sustainability, very tough topic, and I started also to talk to Linux Foundation about this. And basic idea that I have that probably we can make some kind of funding available from big tech companies which should support researchers producing data. So as soon as project is getting finished, they already know that there is some funding that will be available for them, and they'll continue the process of data maintenance and creation. And Linux is supporting that, so let's see how discussion goes. But I really believe this is the right way to go, and this is definitely the future.
Okay, thank you. I think we will go back to the Google Doc to look at the next question. But I think we will be moving slowly to the recommendation, which is the most challenging part. This is the Google Doc, so we still have questions, and I think the audience, of course, is free also to raise an hand. So we have a few questions for Mark. Let's move to Gray. Is Gray open to new repo? For instance, national generalist repositories, non-data repo. So I think it's a very factual question.
Yeah, let's get to logistics. So Gray was a 4-year other transaction award. It has been renewed for another year. So we are hoping it will continue to get renewed. In terms to other generalist repositories, I am sure that, So it's a yes and no, but it's definitely a yes because if you look at the repositories that are funded, so for example, Harvard Dataverse is funded, which is a generalist repository that anyone can go and use. And so all of the Dataverse community benefits from the work that they do. And so DSpace, as far as I know, doesn't have a DSpace that I can go and use and upload data to if it's not at my. So, but that said, Ishwar, who runs it, has been very gracious with adding other organizations who don't fit the criteria, so Metadata Game Chasers and DataSite. And my colleague Anna Van Gulik is the chair. She has more information to field questions on Gray. I have some flyers down there because, yeah, the questions are just how do I get involved? And I appreciate that. Again, going back to the optimism, it is good that the NIH is funding things like this. We were talking before about just saying AI is the answer. Who's going to fund the AI, right, to run the checks on everything? And as a funder, I want to know what research I funded. Would Gray mean the ability to query all the Gray repositories in repository metadata as opposed to querying the metadata in DataSite? It's both. You should be able to do both. But DataSite is, we've agreed that we push all of the metadata to DataSite, and the aim is to get as much quality data into DataSites that can be used as a source for other areas. Very practical.
Thank you very much for your clear answers. Still remain a bit unclear because DataSet is not a search engine.
That's why I said it's yes or no, but yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, I think we can move to a question for Slava. Where do you publish croissant-based metadata? Is there built-in support for indexing it in any repositories today, of course?
This is excellent question. So all croissant records available in Google dataset search. This is how it runs, and it was implemented about 1 year ago. And regarding Dataverse network, what we did from the very beginning, we agreed that it will be 2 different implementations of croissant. So first croissant implementation is basically available inside of repository. So when people publish in the dataset, it just creates static croissant, which is available on download button. But there is another implementation, Python-based, and it's based on knowledge graph, which allows us also to enrich information, for example, connect external control vocabularies, align ontologies, and produce much more rich croissant record, which is available for AI, and basically it serves like a navigation layer for AI applications. So I don't think we even need to publish croissant records separately, because the way how it's implemented, we're using traditional search engines, and Dataverse is based on Solr. So if you ask question, it knows how to run Solr, how to use search queries, and how to describe all input information. It's querying Dataverse, getting list of persistent identifiers, producing croissants on can also download croissant or produce on the spot and feed it inside of AI. So there is no even, it's not necessary to keep it separately.
Thank you very much. And time is flying. I hope we will finally get some recommendation. There is a question. The next question is for Thomas. I hope Thomas is still online. So I'm going to read it. It's, what is the role of the journal editors in a word-driven... It's editing. This is real-time AI. This is in a world driven by AI. Thank you very much, Wolmar. So that, I think, yeah, this is Scott. I think we need to switch to Thomas. Okay. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. First, I thought the question was AI hallucination, but thanks for translating it. Well, the role of an editor in a world driven by AI, I think we really, at the moment, we really need a human in the loop check that really is in control and that verifies that the work we do with AI, as sophisticated it is, we agree with it. So I think editors of journals will have to orchestrate all these AI checks, all these AI peer review, all this AI writing. But if we keep a process that we want to trust, we really need to keep the human in the loop, and probably a human who is independent of the researchers themselves, at least in some cases. So I think that's the role of the editors, and the way we see sort of the growth of AI in publishing is, rather than replacing the humans, we try to develop workflows where human and machine are synergizing. So that, you know, in very general terms, this is what I would say. Now, in the current stage of AI, editors and peer reviewers are absolutely needed. We're experimenting with AI review, and it's getting better and better by the day, really. The level of understanding is improving really every month, and is surprising, but it's still very far from the human brain and from the human expertise and insights. So we need reviewers, and I think we need editors. At the end, I also think there is a purely human value of keeping human in the loop. Authors don't like that much to have to deal only with bots and automated systems. They actually want to have a phone and talk to a real human who understands them, and have a real human-to-human interaction. And this is an effort we try to do at EMBO, is rather to use AI to liberate time for us to have actually proper human-to-human interactions.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Yeah, one comment from the panelists.
So I'm doing a lot of work together with AI models, I mean, as AI assistants, and I can tell you that it's getting really better, and you can also kind of understand what is ground truth if you'll put all models together as agents, and you will ask the same question, probably you will get slightly different answers, but as soon as you can align their answers, you can also understand that this is kind of ground truth. And as soon as you're taking this ground truth and storing it and treating this data, you can also build completely AI automated applications without human in the loop in the future.
That's a vision, I would say. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with these conferences like EMNLP or ACL that some of us publish there. And using AI for reviewing is banned because they know it would just end up in an infinite loop. I think we are really not there, really not there. But maybe it will come. Yeah, Slava.
So this is fundamental problem. If you want to do that, you have to create knowledge graph, and knowledge graph is something alive. So context is changing in time, and this is the challenge, I think.
I think the debate is open. Are there any questions in the audience? We still have a long list of backlog of questions. We need to have recommendations, so I think it's time to open the discussion also with the audience.
Oh, I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, I thought you were willing to have a question. I don't want to be pushy, but if you don't have a question. No? Yeah, please.
So I like the idea of having different tools, right, to go after people to try to get them to do a better job. And one tool is incentives, one tool is regulation, another tool is tooling. So I work with biomedical researchers and have come to the, I don't know, let's say wall where I feel like we just need to put these things behind tooling that facilitates people's regular workflow to get them to do the job without knowing that they're doing the job. So I'm wondering if you all see kind of opportunities for doing that in your different fields. So basically, getting people to do best practice without them having any idea what best practice is. So forget the education part, just put it behind, tooling that helps them do their job better. And where, if you do see that as kind of a way forward, where you've seen that work well.
I think if you just extrapolate that, so I'll give you a very short-term and a very long-term view, but I think if you extrapolate that, my background was in the life sciences, so wet lab science, and that's the humans in the loop. At some point in the future, you can imagine a lot of that done by machines, right? And then the machines will do the machines will listen to what you tell them to, and they will create the metadata as you define it. And so I think that would be a good way to fix a lot of problems in the long term. And then short term, there's things like, particularly in the generalist repository space, the next metadata working group is the AI metadata working group, which is, upload a file and is this the metadata that you should be adding to this? Don't encourage better behavior that way. So that's a working group that's starting now. So if anybody has any strong opinions on what they think that should look like, come and speak to me. But I think this nudging good behavior while still having a human in the loop, not just saying a machine is grabbing all the metadata and generating it without having the person who created the file go, oh yeah, that is correct. I'd tweak that a little bit, and doing the heavy lifting on just querying knowledge graphs and pulling words together. I think that's the first step. That's something that's happening now.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's probably a no-brainer. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay, we can go back to the Google Doc. Actually, I have a reflection at that point. It's like, probably it all boils down to what part of a paper is innovative. Because by definition, if you discover a new gene function, so we're talking about life science, then this new function is unlikely to be listed in the gene ontology by definition. So you cannot expect the system to assign the right gene ontology function by definition. So it's probably, I think this is exactly at the edge. AI will not understand discovery, at least not intuitively, because discovery is the part of science.
I think that's it. Like, humans need to create basic facts. We just need to continue creating facts and add them to the knowledge base. And I did a thing once where it's like, I took a data set from Figshare that wasn't well described. There was global dams or something, and asked ChatGPT to write a paper on it. Like, take the data and write a paper, put it in Overleaf, and it looks, I know nothing about dams, but it looks like a full paper. It looked believable to me as an analysis, but obviously there's subject specific specificities that are different. But yeah, if humans just continue to create new knowledge, then the basic research will continue to be funded, right?
Okay. Oh yeah, Slava, please.
Again, so I don't see any problem to teach machine to take facts and their descriptions as soon as it's archived knowledge and it's also connected in a graph. So we can also train AI models to recognize some trusted facts based on what is available in our current knowledge graphs. And if there is something new, you can also filter out and show this to machine. And after, human, again, will make a decision if it's something not known and how to describe it properly and how to archive it again.
Yeah, no, but it probably just means that it takes a whole bunch of very different tools. That's what it means. Your point is valid, but to detect that you have a new concept is probably, I mean, a new function, and to locate that within the gene ontology. This is still, it's not the same work than just to assign descriptors. You see, I mean, it would assume a very diverse type of fancy AI that do not do, not especially not the let's say the ChatGPT one. This is what I assume, but yeah, of course.
I can elaborate on this. So our experiments, and we do a lot of this kind of work, show that we can basically take any page and produce cross-sum and put cross-sum in Dataverse automatically and connect to external control vocabularies and make it kind of fair record. And this fair record also can be evaluated, and at some point it can be shown to human expert if there is something new and something interesting. So it's already there. It's a matter of months, not years.
So then the question would be, so we have all this standardization effort going on. So we, like the Research Data Alliance, GF4GH for the life science, and many going on. And I think probably these are defining standards and best practices. And then on the other extreme of the span, there are the supplementary data stored in PMC that has been shown by Julien later on. And I think probably maybe it's a question for the funders. There must be synergies between these words. Like how come that is so disconnected? That there is very fancy advances on the standardization, and that there are still this messy stuff that are growing exponentially. It's not reducing, it's growing faster than it used to be. And getting worse and worse, obviously. I mean, if you by any indicators, if you look, it's getting worse. So shouldn't we consider having an effort that would try to connect the two words? That is apparently not coming.
I was just going to say that what I heard was that it's getting better for sub data. It's been OCR'd, it's now machine readable, it's now searchable. So by that metric, there might be more of it or what have you, but the different efforts are moving at different speeds, and that effort in 5 years will be caught up with what's seen as cutting edge today, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Wolmar from Elixir, Sweden. So I think the way people find for organizing their own data is an interesting thing in itself. So, I mean, the problem that you're trying to solve is making sure that this data can be read by others and indexed so people can find it, right? So, I mean, connecting back to Lauren's question before, can you build things into the tooling? Can you then maybe also create curation tooling and mapping formats that makes the connection between the way the researcher found it useful to organize their information in the supplementary materials and the standardized formats. So, I mean, there's an explicit connection that you can validate for those.
Yeah, but would it mean, just to make sure, would it mean that instead of trying to push the curation work before, are you suggesting that the curation work should be, with the toolings, should be pushed after, more like we have seen with the search engine from Julien, and then go one step higher and to support the curation from the supplementary data at the user level?
Well, I don't think it needs to be pushed in like an extreme to any direction. I mean, if there is enough of this is a really good way that works for a large research group, maybe within a community, then finding ways of just exploiting that they're working in something that's really comfortable for them, and then making sure that it fits the standards at the same time. You might need to make some interventions, but maybe you can pave the road.
Yeah, I understand. So I think that's a question maybe for Matthew, because I think, or Julien, because one of the effort that is probably made at the EBI or at SIB is actually to provide tools to support the curation. But they are still doing that very disconnected from the publication somehow. So that we will come back maybe if you want, but I think you raise your hand, Slava.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with this point, but what we are lacking now is control vocabulary, quality of control vocabulary, and ontologies. So if we'll concentrate and we'll ask AI to produce control vocabularies first, and we'll use them as a ground truth, and we'll start to link concept to something that we'll find in papers or in data sets. So we'll create knowledge graph first, and this knowledge graph will become kind of leveraging thing for future AI applications.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just maybe. So can we maybe put the effort at the curation support level?
I think it's quite difficult to speak about curation across the whole spectrum of life sciences. Really, I mean, I think certain communities have very good models for curation, right? So there's, the protein-protein interaction community is based on, again, on pre-publication. They submit their data before they publish. In most cases, it gets curated in collaboration with the author. This similar situation for protein structures, but I think it's really difficult. I mean, and I think it really has to come from the ground level up. I think it can't be, it can't be people, it can't be, the EBI or SIB directing people how they should be doing, what they should be, communities, what they should be doing with their data. I think it really needs to come from those communities in working out a way of curating that works best for them. I don't know if that answers the question.
So it means it would be more something like the, if I try to find an analogy, it's like the Zenodo communities. So Zenodo communities are maintained by communities, but they're completely federated or separated. That probably would be what you have in mind.
I mean, I don't know if you definitely, I don't know how well you can build this on top of a generalist repository. I guess you can, but fundamentally, I think that communities are the people who know about how data reuse in their field works best. So yeah, I think there's a question over there.
Okay. Asta.
No, I don't have to introduce myself. Hi, Asta Matur. I work for Eurobioimaging ERIC Research Infrastructure in Europe. So I actually want to come back to what you were just saying. I think this is very valuable for us because as a research infrastructure, we find ourselves kind of in between a lot of the data repositories. In our case, of course, it's an imaging repository that we're talking about, but we're also happy to collaborate with a lot of generalist repositories as well, and we do in certain cases, at least biostudies and so on. And the users who are producing the data. So we are working with a lot of imaging facilities who are producing a lot of this data. And we want to make sure, and then coming back to the real importance of tooling that Lawrence was mentioning, that people are ready, kind of, because they understand the value of fair data. They understand the value of making their data available. They want to do a good job. I think everybody is kind of getting, better at like the value, understanding the value and the big promise of it. But indeed, if we have some of these tools and we can make this connection between the repositories. So we do work with the repositories as well. We work with Bioimage Archive. We work with EBI repositories there, as well as with the community who actually have the requirements and try to understand like how we can actually make this process nicer and easier for people. And yeah, standards, recommendations, guidelines, tools, that is very, very valuable. So always happy to hear about solutions in that direction.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I'm just saying that we are supposed to keep the session from 90 minutes, but nobody is kicking us out, so I think we can continue.
Well, I was thinking all of the time that I don't have any ideas about recommendations, because I know we need to get onto recommendations to write them all in the doc and what have you. But just related to that last comment and who's going to do the curation, and maybe having it at a thematic level, I really think that a recommendation should be academic societies should jump back in. They've been involved in the publishing world for a long time, but I haven't really seen, if you've got generalist repositories and subject-specific repositories, then the mid-ground is maybe thematic repositories where the societies know about specific schemas and ontologies that are good for that community of people, and we can lead it back to a community of owning the research outputs. So if we can provide the tooling that allows for academic learned societies to do the data labeling and the data curation of outputs that are out there in the community, I do think we'd move the needle to the next level and you'd get community buy-in, and we wouldn't be over reliant on just AI is going to do everything for us.
Yeah, we're involved in a project called PSDI in the UK, Physical Sciences Data Infrastructure, and it's reaching out to communities who might have well, I think as communities become aware of this, they're sort of realizing they know they need to do better with their data because they want to take advantage of all this AI, and they're starting to discover all the things that are wrong with it. So I think we're at a time where it's really fertile for what you've just said, is to encourage small communities to get together and start thinking about how they can do better by their data so they can take advantage of it.
Yeah, and just to amplify that a little bit more, so I'm involved in Biofair, which is at the digital research infrastructure level. It's a sort of sibling to PSDI, and we're approaching this in exactly the same way as well, like trying to encourage communities to the sort of life sciences domains to get more involved in ownership of data and good data management practice, and thinking about standardizations and how they will share their data all the way through the life cycle, not just sort of right at the end when they're ready to write their manuscript. So yes, that's just a +1 to, like, this is a really fertile time for doing this kind of activity.
Thank you, Tony. So I wanted just to go back to the Google Doc. So I see many participants already filled up the participant table, sometime with OrcID even. So yeah, please leave your contact information. If we end up with good recommendation, we're going to share it. I think there is this actually D4.1 that is here is an Elixir deliverables. So we'll try to inject the discussion items within this document. And we will share with you. If you leave your contact information, you will be invited to co-sign, but there is no obligation, the reports, okay? I think with that, probably we need to close the session. Thank you very much for the panelists. Thank you very much for the audience. And let's go on with the discussion elsewhere.